The Nakasendo hike is one of the best arguments for backpacking Japan in summer. The Kiso Valley, which is located in the Nagano prefecture, follows an old hiking trail which connected modern-day Tokyo and Kyoto throughout the Japanese feudal era. The inland trail cuts through rivers, mountains, and iconically postal towns, which are quaint, traditional villages which once thrived upon the commerce brought from traveling merchants and armies hundreds of years ago. Today, these villages still house small communities whose economy now depends upon the thousands of tourists who pass through each year. And so this snapshot of feudal Japan was the next stop on my trip. Heading from Hakone, I caught the bullet train from Odawara to Nagoya. From everything I've heard, it may be worthwhile stepping out of the station for a few hours to check out Nagoya, but I was on a mission and immediately caught a connecting line to Nakatsugawa. The ride into Nakatsugawa is phenomenal. You're flashing past the usual suburbs, skyscrapers, and industry, and then you pass through a tunnel and bam, you're smacked by greenery and you've entered rural Japan. At Nakatsugawa station, you can cross the parking lot to the info center, which is where I got my connecting bus ticket to Magome. The bus then weaves you up into the mountains and drops you off at the village center. I hiked the rest of the way uphill to my accommodation, which was interesting to say the least, but I'll talk about that later. You can approach the Kiso Valley in a few ways. Some people hike all the way from Nakatsugawa station, some people complete the whole route from Kyoto to Tokyo. However, I only had one night here, so I did the shorter, about 10-mile hike from Magome to Tsumago. So, the next morning, with a casual 38 degrees Celsius, I picked up some sushi rolls and fruit from the Magome supermarket and started on the trail. I won't say much about the trail, other than it's unforgettable. You follow a sparsely marked trail through the woods and towns and across rivers. You ring bells to scare away any nearby bears, and the people you come across are naturally in a sociable, good mood and just want to chat. This was easily one of the highlights from my whole trip in backpacking Japan. Overall, you could power through the walk in about 90 minutes if you really wanted to. But from chatting with people in my guest house, most seem to spend 3 to 4 hours on the route. Eventually, you arrive in Tsumago, the biggest postal town you come across on the route. It's very commercialized with food stands, ice cream, souvenirs, and a post office. It's worth hanging around for an hour or two, and if you're there later in the afternoon, you may be able to enjoy the feudal aesthetic without all the crowds. While exploring, atop the hill I found an abandoned school. I poked around a bit. The doors and windows were locked, but I was able to take some interesting photos. The higher up the hill, the more likely you are to leave the main tourist strip and accidentally be lingering in someone's backyard, so probably try to avoid that. From Tsumago, some people walk a few extra kilometers to Nagizo to catch a train to their next destination. I was heading to Kyoto next, so I caught a bus back to Nakatsugawa train station. In terms of accommodation, I spent the night at the Magome Gaku guest house. You need to stay here if you're doing the Nakasendo Trail. In years of backpacking, it is easily the weirdest, creepiest, but also the most wholesome place I've ever stayed. Essentially, it's a refurbished high school with classrooms outfitted with bunk beds. However, it is still a functioning school in the summer. That means there are literally classrooms and kids running around in the morning, which in my opinion should be a safety hazard, a liability hazard, but you just got to embrace it. Just not in a weird way. In my opinion, the creepiest part of all of this was that in the afternoon, you could hear their concert band practicing across the hall. The housekeeper was the loveliest dude. He drove a few of us down the mountain to a local hotel which had a large onsen. After a long sweaty day, there's nothing better than just dropping into the warm baths naked with a bunch of strangers. The breakfast was free, which is rare in Japan, but honestly it was just a piece of white bread, white rice and a hard-boiled egg, but I guess that lets you carb up before the hike. Altogether, the Nakasendo Trail is an easy way to elevate a summer trip to Japan and make your visit more memorable than just city hopping. That said, my next stop was spending half a week in Kyoto, a major city, where I checked out ancient architecture and hung around some monkeys. That was pretty memorable too.